5 times history changed because one person got sick. Number 5. Time while healing an ankle injury. Now considered one of the greatest books and movies of all time, Gone with the Wind is an American classic. Historians believe that it has literally changed how we view antebellum history. However, it would not exist if Margaret Mitchell had never developed arthritis in her ankle. Unable to move, she became an insatiable reader. Her husband had to drag all of her library requests home every day. He eventually got sick of continually bringing her books, so he brought her a typewriter. He wanted her to entertain herself by writing a book. Jokingly, he said, "Peggy, if you want another book, why don't you write your own?" That manuscript became Gone with the Wind. Margaret Mitchell had never wanted to write a book. When friends came by, she would hide the manuscript as pillows or put it under the rug. By 1929, her ankle had healed and the book was finished. She had no intention of publishing it. In fact, it wasn't until 10 years later that the book was published. She got the push after a friend laughed at the idea of Margaret Mitchell ever writing a book, saying, "Imagine, anyone as silly as Peggy writing a book." Number 4. Farts drove Hitler crazy. Adolf Hitler suffered from meteorism, a fancy way of saying that he farted a lot. To solve it, Hitler saw a lot of doctors who tried different diets, but none worked. In 1936, Theodor Morell successfully cured his farting. His prescriptions were helpful but led to Hitler's demise. To treat his flatulence, Dr. Morell prescribed Dr. Koster's anti-gas pills, and weekly injections of amphetamines. These did help to make Hitler's farts less stinky, but the pills contained extracts of strychnine and atropine. The key ingredients of those pills were belladonna and strychnine. Belladonna is a poison that causes excitement, confusion, and hallucinations. Strychnine causes agitation, apprehension, fear, and restlessness. Starting in 1940, Hitler took 20 of those pills every day. He also took daily injections of amphetamines and cocaine. The effects on his nervous system are incalculable. Common symptoms include delirium, violent outburst, paranoia, and hallucinations. While high on meth, Hitler berated Mussolini at their last meeting in 1943. This meeting severed an already strained alliance. As the war progressed, Hitler became increasingly insane and aggravated. By April 1945, Hitler was trapped in the bunker and was a raving meth head. In his last few hours, he took another dose of meth. Aggravation, paranoia, and violent tendencies came to a boil with his suicide. Number 3. Ju Kuan got sick, thought he was Jesus' brother, and 20 million people died. Ju Kuan is not well known in the US, but he started a civil war that killed more people than the American version. In fact, both of them happened at the same time, except the Chinese version lasted 3 times as long and took 20 times as many lives. It also was important in bringing down the Qin dynasty. All of this started because a disgruntled civil servant had a fever. Ju Kuan was fascinated by the Protestant missionaries in China. While reading their teachings, he was suddenly struck by sickness and was unconscious for about 4 days. While in a coma, he had a vision that he was the younger brother of Jesus and had been taken up to heaven to see him. Hong also saw a bearded man who told him to slay all the demons. As the other Son of God, his cult gained a lot of traction. The teachings of the heavenly kingdom were also inspired by the fever to kill demons. In fact, the word demon became someone who doubted Hong's teachings. This crazy man got a hot head, and the Tping rebellion tore apart an empire. Number 2. Communism started as a skin rash. Karl Marx's Das Kapital is one of the most important collection of words in human history. This book directly outlined how communism could work and be implemented. Karl Marx believed that there was a mass conspiracy among the wealthy to suppress the poor. According to a theory by Professor Sam Schuster in the British Journal of Dermatology, this paranoia was caused by a rare skin condition called hidradenitis suppurativa. Besides boils and pus, hidradenitis suppurativa produces feelings of exploitation and alienation. Marx associated his physical suffering with the suffering of the poor. The personal turmoil, physical and mental, helped foster a state of mind that conceived of communism. Number 1. A white woman lost her voice, and thousands of black people gained theirs. As a genre, the blues was influenced by the suffering of the Jim Crow-era South. To best capture this, record companies hired white women to cover the songs. But all of that changed when Mamie Smith recorded Crazy Blues. Mamie Smith holds the distinction of being the first African American to be recorded singing the blues. She was only allowed to do this when white singer Sophie Tucker became ill and backed out of a recording session. Songwriter Perry Bradford convinced the recording studio that audiences could handle hearing a black person sing a genre that they had created. The song has become a classic, but its real legacy was the boom in African American recording artists. For the first time, African American blues and jazz musicians recorded in mass numbers. This launched an era of music known as classic female blues. Legendary acts like Bessie Smith and Ma Rainey were heard for the first time. In a decade that saw the rise of Louis Armstrong, Robert Johnson, and Duke Ellington, it is wonderful that Sophie Tucker got sick when she did. Who knows how many wonderful songs and artists we were denied before Sophie became ill, and how many more we would have missed if this racist policy had continued much longer.